Warning: this iceberg is about the lore of my comics and some plots that actually happened. If you are very new to this, I recommend you see something else or see my comics before commenting. Remember that these comics are not connected to the canonical characters. They are just fictitious plots. Any plots heard or seen are just coincidences. Now yes, to start the filling.
Hello and welcome to my first Iceberg. Today's topic will be about the lore of my comics in general. I know that there are still seasons in the works and it is possible that this will have a second part in a few years. Anyway, having mentioned the warning, we will begin to count the dark and murky things of my comics. As you know, the iceberg has 4 parts. The tip is the harmless and the deep, the darkest that possibly makes them uncomfortable or scared. Although I know it's not wrong, XD. Prepare your snacks and drinks and turn off the lights for more pleasure. Because we started with the iceberg of my comics. Raoul's dark origin. Raoul was born with an evil twin who is his shadow. When he was born, a suspicious attack occurred which caused family problems. It is unknown what was the reason for the existence of Zero, Raoul's twin brother. During the short episodes it has been shown how dark and evil Zero can be. While Raoul went through hard things, that somehow he got over it. However, the Hedgebomber is also not saved since he made some mistakes in the past. Remember that the X aspect of the Hedgebomber represented the deep depression of loneliness and feeling unappreciated by him. Which shows that in addition to having positive feelings, he may have some negative ones which have to do with his past. Blade manipulation. In the episodes Collapse in the Universe Act 1 and 2, Siren Empress, who was the antagonist of the fan comic of the first season, show us the origin of how Blade is Blade. She also shows us that he is a very easy guy to manipulate. Even he himself hates being mentally manipulated. From what we found out, Blade had a hard time being manipulated by an evil siren. In this comic you can see how sinister Siren Empress is when handling it. Who is Spectra? In the first chapter of the 3rd season of Hedgebomber Stories, narrates the past stories of each character including Spectra. Spectra explains how she was reborn. A dark sect used her bones to revive her and reincarnate her as a specter. However, Spectra let out a horrible glee, commanding the cult ghosts present to kill all the members. And suddenly she returned to her normal state. She does not know who she was in her past life. She looked at her grave for her name and took it with her. Many doubt who Spectra really was, but we assume that perhaps they will tell us later. Judging from her young adult bomber girl look with pale skin, it could be said that she could have died at an age between 18 and 28 years, who knows, she could have died drowned, incinerated, or even worse, mutilated. That would explain a bit why Spectra looks on the positive side of situations involving death. Why Perlet is an obsessive GF. Perlet is an obsessive girlfriend, but very few have wondered why. In the chapters Perlet's rival, the Extreme Football Match and Forced Co-op explain Perlet's breakups. Because her boyfriends were unfaithful, she became very obsessive and jealous. Until the Second Chance to Love chapter, in which she met Raoul and then they became boyfriends. It's hard to know that an innocent and good girl like Perlet has been through some breakups thanks to her evil stepsister. Necky's little polemic. A while back, before Squid painted, Necky was first shown in a Splatoon community. When they saw it, it caused a slight controversy in the network since it existed. But after a while the waters calmed down and some liked the design of it. This slight controversy is recreated in the comic Why of Necky, which I will explain later. Rex's Secret. Rex's Secret was a piece of evidence against Miss Megavolt which was told in Madame Gemma chapter 6, It Wasn't My Fault. The episode was a compilation of found evidence, and among them they mentioned the worst mistake made by the twins' grandfather. He agreed to hand Gemma over to the corrupt president, in exchange for letting her and his grandchildren go. Her son's murder was planned, and he caught Gemma's attention to draw her to hers. He wanted custody of the twins, but his son wouldn't allow it, and he left custody of the twins to Gemma. After the entire plot of the chapter, old Rex realized his serious mistake, and he was almost going to send his twin grandchildren to certain death along with himself and Gemma. Doubtful is a monster without any contribution to the plot, but his information and appearance says something that could be of your discomfort. Doubtful is a seven-headed monster from the Anti-Void. The main head of him is a horned orb, while the rest are the 6 heads that represent the 6 people who doubt his trust. Such people who might doubt your trust could be your own loved ones, because only they can notice your flaws. Dark Envy point of view. In the chapter, Chaotic Song, they show us the beginning and end of the chapter. Although this episode looks harmless, Dark Envy's point of view is much darker than we might think. Well, it turns out that the dark musical note that Dark Envy brought would lead the world we know to darkness and agony. It would destroy all life on Earth and turn it into hell itself. Imagine what would have happened if Meander had really failed. Well, we'd all be dead. Who was the true wife? In Squid Painted, Arl's Insanity, we can see some scenes of the stepsisters' mothers, Perlet and Zaki. Early on in Perlet's rival, we were initially told that Zaki's mother was the lover. But we got the plot twist that the wife was actually Zaki's mother. This data is not yet fully confirmed, since there are 2 points that make us doubt if in fact Zaki's mother was the real wife and not the lover. Which of the two was the woman who cheated on the real wife? Nobody knows. Black Diamond's domination. In the Hedgebomber Stories comics, we are introduced to Black Diamond, a character from Sean Ventura who has committed dark and sinister acts in any universe. We even got to see how he dominated his own universe, Raoul's universe and Rawla's universe. He is even capable of betraying his lackeys who are not gems. However, he has a warrior code with dealings, and if said person breaks the deal, something worse will happen. This gives us to understand how far Black Diamond can go when it comes to dominating the universe. Donnie's heart change. In the last episode of Squid Painted we are shown the real reason why Donnie Ure gave up being Octavio's soldier. She was punished in the worst way. Burning down her house is not something strong, but knowing that she was betrayed and punished on purpose is unfair. She lost her pet, who turns out to be the only dear relative she had. This gives us to understand that Donnie had no friends or family until the day she met Sebastian and the rest of her friends. Tell me, would you forgive someone who wanted to see you suffer? Neki's past. In the Why of Neki comic we are told about Neki's sad past before she was the Inkling cat girl we all know. This depressing story can show us how hard it is for a person with bodily deformities. And also one of the sinister acts of Arl, which we will explain later. A strange but interesting fact is that the plot of Neki's sad past is a reference to the reaction of some Splatoon fans when they saw Neki for the first time. Now do you understand what I said about the little controversy about Neki's design? Lorena's origin. Going back to the first chapter of the 3rd season, they show us the drastic change of Lorena the Inkling. In her past life, she was a mean and tough girl who received mistreatment from her parents. Neither of them gave her affection. No one approached her for being aggressive. But she was suddenly transformed into the Inkling whom we already know thanks to the blow of a powerful object. If we analyze the past, it shows us that she was very unhappy, despised by her family and depressed about her. If Lorena had not been hit by said stone, she would have suffered more until reaching suicide. But at least that alternate story isn't real. The origin of the Midorisk City. The Midoriskudi brothers Mark and Neki were always persecuted by Arl during the years. Nobody knew the real reason until now. In the chapter on the origin of the Midoriskudi, they explained their origin and about their race, which apparently was united with Arl's race, the Octa Hunters. However, this union was broken when one of them found out the horrible secret. Well, it turns out that said emerald that the brothers protected was cursed. This provoked a war between both races, causing a great genocide. Even Arl can confirm that the Midoriskudi are a bloodthirsty, genocidal race. The two brothers did not know of said sinister power. As the saying goes, curiosity killed the Octoling. Perlet comeback real story. In the chapter Perlet returns had drastic changes. It was planned that the plot would be darker, but I didn't want to devastate the others. The original plot was that Perlet lost her memory. Derek tricks her by saying that he is her boyfriend while Raoul was an obsessed nobody. The law was preserved in the plot as it is, the weaker and the stronger must finish the discussions in a duel to the death. The stronger inkling wins and keeps everything including his partner while the weaker dies. The dark ending was that Raoul would die in Derek's hands in front of Peelred, and she would react too late, and hug the corpse. And the end of the chapter would be with Perlet crying at her wedding with Derek since she is forced to marry hers, otherwise she would be another prisoner for her slave collection. This was going to have a second part but the whole plot was changed. If this had been real, Perlet would no longer be the Hedgebomber's boyfriend. Shadow Bomber story. Shadow Bomber is one of the enemies and bosses of the crossover saga. In his story we are told his origin. He was a happy bomberman who was in love with a girl. However, his teachers did not accept that Shadow Bomber was good and they forced Shadow to kill his beloved girl. The Bloodless did not agree to kill her, but they forced him to watch as her girlfriend was killed and torn apart. He was devastated and joined his group. The darkness consumed him and he became the legendary Bomberman of Darkness whom we already know. To this day he is considered a villain since he wishes misery and sadness to all beings who come into sight of him. Gemma's trauma. In the pilot episode of Madame Gemma's Hedgebomber Story special, they tell us about Gemma's past and between them we can notice a deep trauma. It all started on her 15th birthday. She would spend her birthday together with her parents on a train trip while they were going to deliver something important to her late grandfather's old friend. But suddenly her happiness was interrupted when she showed herself the traitor in front of them. Her parents sacrificed her lives to save Gemma's life. She was devastated to see her parents killed in front of her. From that moment she suffered a trauma which she does not want to lose her relatives again. Because she doesn't want to see family blood spilled because of her. She suffers from grief disorder. Which explains to us well why Gemma believes that she is to blame for the loss of her parents. Even though she got revenge for killing the traitor, she didn't take away the deep hole she left when she killed her parents. Shadowless sect. Let's see, the Shadowless sect is a dark and sinister sect, anyone knows that. However, it is connected to all the multiverses. The history of the sect cannot be seen in the comics, but on an SMBX level. In that level there is a secret route which explains the plot of the sect. Surely you would not want to see how they revive the god of darkness in the multiverses, right? Cappy's horrible acts. Cappy is a dubious character, as he claims to be Shandy's father. Many doubt him since he is not like that. In some chapters they show us that he is only an adoptive father and that he does not know who is the real father of Shanty. He keeps that secret hidden until she is old enough to understand it. However, in the Sonic and Bomberman comics they tell us that Cappy was troublesome demon genius who has caused chaos and havoc. Shanty's mother did not want Shanty to know him and they locked him in her cursed lamp. It is unknown what unholy acts Cappy has committed to get him locked up in her lamp. But only Uncle Mimic and the mother know. Unknown acts of Green Kaminari. In the character files, we find Green Kaminari, an electric shy guy of dubious origin, who is a student of Witch Bomber and a suspected criminal. The acts of Green Kaminari are unknown, however he has been in some scenarios unnoticed, which gives a strange theory that he was possibly involved in some acts. Keith contamination. In the Splatoon fandom there are some mentions of salmonlings, a half-salmon race familiar with salmonids. Among these characters is Keith, a salmonling who hates inklings and octolings. The reason for his hatred is for two reasons: the typical hatred between both races with the salmonids for stealing their eggs and the second for the contamination they created. That's right, Keith is a mutant salmonid who got the salmonling look thanks to the scraps of the inklings and octolings. Knowing that he lives in a dump along with his group of salmonid shows us how hard he was on his. They lived in the garbage and tried to survive by feeding on the rotten leftovers that were in the place. Is there something dark about the inklings and octolings with the salmon that we don't know about in the Splatoon fandom? Mayura's suicide. There is not much information about this, but in some conversations of the same creator, I have said that the first page is a recreation based on a girl's funeral about a real suicide. That's right, the first page of the comic Revenge Suicide is a recreation of a real suicide. But it is better not to go into details about the real suicide. For the good of all. The Inkling girlfriend from Dead Inklings, returning to the chapter, Perlet Come Back, explains an alternative plot. What would happen if the brides of the fallen Inklings reject the strongest Inkling, who is the king or the prince? They end up imprisoned as slaves. Many are still alive for years, and it is unknown how she stayed alive locked up in that cell for years. There may be a few answers, but among them the darkest one that can be said is that they ate the other slaves who are about to die to survive. Anyone would take this scene as something common, but if we look deeper into the plot, we would realize why everyone in the strong Squid City said that it was an unfair law. If I will not save her this time? In the Hard Choice chapter, Black Diamond kidnapped his girlfriend so that he himself gave her the Chaos Emeralds, including the Bomber Emerald. While Raoul and his two friends were talking about the matter, suddenly Raoul mentions if this time he can't save her, and a recapitulation of the moments in which Raoul wasn't there to save her is shown, which his friends realize they don't recognize their good friend. After the meeting the threat began. And in the end Raoul fulfilled his part just like Black Diamond. He got the emeralds and Raoul got his girlfriend back. After this Raoul was devastated since his worst fear was losing her because of her. At the end of the chapter they show us how Raoul was able to flee from Black Diamond. Seeing the chapter in depth, we can see that Raoul questioned her rescue and feared that this time he would not be able to save her. If we were in her place we would think, why is she still with me, knowing that I bring her serious problems. Killer Shanty. Killer Shanty is a terrifying, murderous version of Shanty herself. In the story of the fan version of her, she explains to us that she is an evil and cursed genius who has killed her victims through her wishes thanks to her cursed lamp. This fan version of Shanty appeared in Hedgebomber stories. Her cursed lamp somehow ended up in ours, perhaps because of the universal collision issue. She is even said to have killed her enemy Risky Boots. It is unknown how many victims Killer Shanty has killed with the murderous desires of her victims. Arl's real insanity. In the Hedgebomber comics we are shown Arlok the Hunter, an octoling who hates the Inklings but especially the Midoriskwidi. A hired psychiatrist who, if they cancel her deal or don't pay her, are killed by her. The loss of her race in her genocide transformed her into a sick and insane girl with bloodthirsty desires to murder her victims in the most painful way possible. This can be seen in the first chapter of Squid Painted and in the end, where we see to what extent Arl's insanity can reach. The Midoriskwidi did a lot of damage to him. Unlike what Arl does, it's much worse. And what did you think of the iceberg? Very disturbing or very cringe? Tell me your opinion in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.